Welcome to the Dating After Divorce podcast. I'm your host, Shade Curry, and I believe every divorced woman deserves a romantic relationship where she feels safe, loved, and cherished. You can create the most amazing life after divorce, and I will teach you how. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Dating After Divorce podcast. I bring you today a special guest, my coach colleague, Jill Angie. Jill helps plus-sized women start running and feel confident in their bodies. Jill and I met in our feminist coaching certification group, which is awesome. Awesome. We're just having a blast in there. Welcome to the podcast, Jill. Please tell the listeners kind of like a little bit about yourself, what you do, and who you help.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here. And thank you for having me on the show. So I help like mostly women, I would say in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, kind of, and mostly plus size women or women who have never really felt athletic. You know, those women, we all have been that person who couldn't run the mile in gym class and like sort of plagued us for our lives thinking like, oh, I'm just not athletic. So I help women who kind of have that mindset and maybe feel a little insecure about their bodies to start running and gain confidence and really kind of change their lives through that process. Yeah. And it is the best job ever.
Yes, I've listened to some of your podcasts, and the stories and the conversation there is so inspiring. And your podcast is called Not Your Average Runner.
Yes, that is correct. Not Your Average Runner.
Awesome. Well, welcome. Thank you for being here. But we're talking about your divorce and remarriage today.
One of my favorite topics, actually.
I know. It's my favorite topic. I talk about it all the time. When I was going through my divorce, talking about it was like the killed the buzz at every dinner party. I mean, like people back away from you slowly. So one of my things is I want to normalize this conversation. Like divorce happens 50% of the time, maybe a little more or less. We should be talking about it.
Yeah. Right. It's so funny because when I first got divorced, or when my husband and I first, agreed to separate and divorce, and I would tell people and they would say, "Oh, I'm so sorry." And I'd be like, I'm not. It's like not a funeral.
Right. And for some people, divorce is traumatic and difficult. But even for those people, like I had a pretty rough divorce. I wasn't unhappy to be divorcing. I was just unhappy about how hard it was to be divorcing because the marriage wasn't viable. Like it was not a viable marriage. I was happy to be done with it. But let's I guess start with kind of like why did you get a divorce? Like what was the impetus for you and your ex deciding to separate?
Well, it was mostly me deciding to leave, and he didn't necessarily have a say in the matter. Obviously, when one partner is like, peace out, that's it, right? It's kind of over. But we were married for 12 years. We were together for about 15 years. And I think when we got married, I kind of had this belief that I'd probably never find the love of my life. So I should just find a good guy that wasn't going to hurt me. And I found that. And he really is like, I mean, he's actually an amazing person and he's somebody else's dream man. He's just not mine. And I just realized, I was staying in the marriage. I kind of figured it out probably a year or two in. I was like, oh, I think I made a mistake. But it didn't occur to me that I was allowed to get divorced. I know that sounds so strange, but I was kind of like, well, I said I would be with you for life. So I guess that's what we're going to do. And so I was super miserable and was kind of like looking everywhere else for fulfillment. And, I'm like, all right, we're going to build a huge house because that'll make me happy. Or I'm going to get the perfect job and that'll make me happy. Well, I'm going to quit that job and start my own business and that'll make me happy. And that last part did kind of make me happy because that's what I'm doing now. But But I kind of came to the conclusion that like, I wanted a relationship where I felt like, I don't even know what the word is. Cause it's not that I didn't love my husband. I just wasn't in love with him. Like we had a very lackluster relationship. We were very like, we weren't really a great fit. And I just kind of thought, I'd just rather be, I think that was it. I got to the point where I realized like, I'd rather be alone and find my way alone than be with somebody just to say that I'm with somebody, right? Like that was sort of the deciding point for me. And then it took me a couple years from when I made that conscious decision to work up the courage to say, hey, I want to leave, because I knew it was going to hurt him, because he was actually really happy. His marriage was great. Mine, not so much. Right. And so it took a couple years to work up the courage. And I think the turning point for me was when somebody said to me, staying in this marriage is lying, because you're basically lying to that person, pretending that everything is fine when it's not. And you're lying to yourself. And is that really who you want to be? And I thought, no, that is not who I want to be. And I think within a few weeks, I had actually, after that, I thought about it and I practiced like what I was going to say. And I asked for a divorce, and, the rest is history.
Yeah. That's something you said about you didn't want to be in the marriage just to be with someone.
Yeah.
That concept is so familiar. And there's something about marriage and relationships and women. And I don't know if this is true for, men as well, but I do know like that resonated with my younger self, where it was like being with someone was presented as this like goal and this pinnacle. And then many women after their divorces, the concept of being with someone again is still, it's sort of like, it's still the goal, especially for women who didn't want their divorce and their husbands were the ones who wanted a divorce. Then the goal right after is to be with someone again, because somehow that's like what gives us value, or, did you ever think about that and where that came from?
It's kind of funny because I am remarried now, and I remarried about 3 years after, about 3 years later, 3.5. But no, when I left, I thought to myself, I really don't want to date. I don't want to be with anybody. I don't want to get married again. And I just want to be me, myself, and I. And then about 2 months after I moved out, this guy that I used to know from college, like, in the 80s, asked me on a date. I was in California, and I just happened to be near where he lived. And he reached out on Facebook and said, hey, I heard you're getting divorced. Would you want to go and just go out for dinner? And so I thought, well, it's a date, but like he lives in California, I live in Philly, like it's not a big deal. And I went out on the date, and it was kind of flirting. And I don't know, like, I mean, we never actually dated. We just kind of like had that one. But after that, it like woke something up in me. I was like, wait a minute, maybe I do want to go on dates. Maybe I do want to like kind of just have some fun. And so that's what I decided to do. I was like, I'm going to go on 50 first dates before I turn 50. And I had maybe 9 months of time to do it. And I was like, I'm going to get really good at dating. I definitely don't want to get married again. All the things, right? I just want to have some fun, because I felt like for 12 years, I denied myself any kind of relationship fun, because I was with this guy that, I just didn't want to be with. And so I started dating like crazy. Oh, that was so fun. It was such a delightful, joyous time in my life. And at the same time, there were plenty of highs and lows, because there were, guys that I really liked that didn't like me back. And then there were guys that liked me that I didn't like back, and they got mad about it. But it was just like all of I just got to experience like all of the emotions. And, yeah, I can't even remember what your first question was.
No, I love it. No, this is perfect.
I'm so lost in the memories.
It really underscored what I was saying, which is you weren't, after your divorce, you weren't trying to be with someone just to be with someone. It
No,
wasn't
I
like,
wasn't.
I just need someone. And you actually answered it. You said, I wanted to be with me, myself, and I. And my theory, which, my theory is like everything I've read. So I'm not like everything I've read from all the other people who have theories, is that for those of us who wanted to be with someone just to be with someone, it was about not wanting to be with ourselves. There's something scary about just being with yourself.
Yeah. There really is. There really is, for sure.
And society also then shames you for just being with yourself. Like, what's wrong with you? Why hasn't a man chosen you?
Yeah.
Why hasn't a man picked you? There must be something wrong with you, which of course reinforces that shame that, many people have just from, programming, that there must be something wrong with them. And it's just one more area that confirms that there must be something wrong with them. And I think a lot of the work of healing after a divorce, or really getting ready for a new relationship or new life after a divorce, is being willing. And I think the emotion there is just a willingness to be with yourself. Not that you have to be with yourself forever.
Yeah.
But are you willing to be with yourself forever? Yeah. And so did you spend time on your own? Like, I know you started dating and you were having lots of fun with it, but what was your me, myself, and I process? What did that look like? Do you wonder exactly how divorced women just like you are meeting eligible men who want a real relationship and a commitment? They're doing it by dating with their core values. Your core values are the GPS that lead you to the partner you've been looking for. When you use your core values on dating apps, text messages, and at social events, you will easily connect with your true match partner without chasing, settling, or wasting time with non-committal men. I have taught exactly how to do this in the 2-hour Core Values Dating Blueprint course available on my website, shadecurry.com/dating. That's SADECURRY.com/dating. You will learn exactly how to identify your core values and use them on your dating profile, how to ask the right questions via text, and how to tell the right stories on dates so that you attract the right people and repel those who aren't right for you. If you're ready to meet your true match, hop over to shadecurry.com/dating or click the link in the show notes. Now back to the episode.
I mean, it was finding a place to live that I absolutely loved, like a place that, and like decorating in ways that pleased only me, and like not having to compromise on anything. Because I think I felt a lot of the thoughts I had about my marriage were, I'm always compromising and I never get what I truly, truly want. And so that, I think that was one of the first things I did, was I indulged in moving to an absolutely beautiful apartment that was, just made me happy just being there. I got a cat, I just did all kinds of things that I had been putting off for years and years. And I just really enjoyed it. And, I went on, every guy I dated, I told them the same thing. I was like, listen, you are not the only guy I'm dating. And if you have a problem with that, this is not going to work out, because mama's not going to be settling down anytime soon. And so that was a very powerful thing to just, every single person I met, I set my ground rules before anything else. I was like, it's so nice to meet you. Here's the deal. And some of them were like, yeah, that's great. And others were like, nope, sorry, not for me. But I felt like I was doing absolutely everything on my own terms. And it was really powerful. And I also think the fact that I was almost 50 years old. And so I was kind of at that, I had been coming to a point in my life where I realized, like, hey, everything I've been doing before isn't working. And so let's just say, like, for the back half of your life, you do it a different way. You do it like the way your instincts tell you to do it, instead of the way everybody else is telling you to do it. So again, I completely lost the plot.
No, this is amazing. I have 5 follow-up questions. This is
okay.
First of all, dating on your own terms and just having the confidence to just say, hey, this is what I'm about. Right? Like, was that uncomfortable at all? Because I know for many women that is so uncomfortable. A lot of the work that I do in my program is, saying, hey, define your terms. Like, I don't define those terms for my clients. I have like worksheets for them that helps them define their terms as an individual.
Yeah.
And I think it's so hard for so many people to say, these are my terms, and I'm going to go out and tell these men my terms.
Yeah. Well, I think the reason it was so easy is because I had decided I don't need a partner to feel good about myself. And so then it was like, all right, well, then I get to just decide. And so taking partnership off the table and taking marriage off the table and just saying like, I'm just here to have fun meant that it didn't really matter to me if the guy was offended or whatever by how I was approaching dating. Data. Speaking of data, I kept a spreadsheet, by the way. But
I love it. Oh my God. I love it. Oh my gosh. Like, I didn't have enough people at any one time to have a spreadsheet just because my geographical area was just not flooded with like, hotties. But here's the thing, that didn't stop me from finding my husband within 2 years. So like, it's not the numbers, but oh my gosh, I'm a fan of the spreadsheets.
Yeah, it was so fun. It was absolutely a delightful thing to do because then I could kind of keep track of like, what kind of guy do I like? What do I not like? I definitely developed a type that was completely the opposite of my husband. And I found myself like seeking out, like kind of chubby bearded guys with sort of like reddish hair. Like it was like such a type. And so that was kind of fun.
And is your husband, does he fit the type?
He actually, he totally, he's bald and he's got a red beard and he used to be chubby. Now he's not. He lost about 100 pounds after we met. But yeah, he totally falls squarely into that.
I love it.
That type, which is so funny because that's not the type that I would have gone for before my first husband. So
and that process really underscores something that I do with my clients, which is when they, when we start working together, often they'll be like, well, I went on the first date, but I'm not attracted to him. Right. And I never tell them, you have to go on a second date with him or you should or you shouldn't. I always want them to tune in and ask, so why wasn't I attracted?
Yeah.
I'm like, there's a reason you weren't attracted. It's useful data for you to know that.
Yeah.
And that's for sure. And so many people are like so out of tune with themselves that they don't know why. They're just like, it's just something that happens to me. I love this one and I don't love that one. And I'm like, no, it's you. It's your nervous system is sending you messages. It might be the smell. It might be the look. Your senses are giving you this message. It would be useful for you to know where it's coming from. Is it coming from like true lack of attraction, or is it coming from trauma? Is it coming like what is it? And I really they do not like this part at all. Because I asked them like all the why questions about that. And it sounds like you with your spreadsheet and just spending time listening to yourself and working it and reworking it. Like your brain was just kind of doing that.
Yeah.
Until it settled in on what you really wanted. So thank you for sharing that. That's so awesome.
I mean, it even got to the point because I did almost all my dating was online because I was like, I'm 49 years old. Like I've been married for the past 12 years. I don't know anybody. So I said, all right, fine. Tinder, OkCupid, Bumble, like, let's do it. Let's go there. And so I got to the point where I had refined my profile to basically just be a bullet pointed list of my ideal person. And I was like, if this is you, swipe right, boom, done. And it was like, and as somebody who's in the online business world and like spends a lot of time marketing, I was like, oh, well, this is just exactly how you market a business. I'm just marketing myself. And it worked like gangbusters. It's so like funny.
Speak to your ideal client and tell them what you have to offer.
Yes, exactly. That was exactly it. It was like, it was a bullet pointed list of, because I started with him. I'm like, if this is you, and then the other part of the list was, this is me. And then if this seems like a match, swipe right. And I feel like I weeded out a lot of folks that, were like, oh, like one of the things that I said was, I don't want to date anybody with children. And I did get a lot of angry direct messages on Tinder. How dare you exclude men with children? I'm perfect for you. I'm like, but you have children. So therefore you're not perfect for me.
Right.
Yeah. But it was just so empowering. And I think the more I dated the more I realized, like, hey, when you ask for what you want, and aren't attached to whether you get it or not, but whether you're clear on this is what I want. And if it doesn't match up at least like 90%, it's a no. It's just so liberating.
Yeah.
It's so much fun.
100%. Yeah. So I wanted to ask about the guys who got offended by your terms. Like, you talked about the guys who DM'd and said, you shouldn't do this, which I love that you didn't let that change your criteria or your standards, because those are standards too. I don't want to have children, or I don't want to raise like, it's just, this is just me. And I have talked to women who they think they're taking feedback from the people they meet on the apps. So they meet a guy and he tells them, well, you shouldn't. And then they tweak their profile based on what he said. I'm like, no. Well, how did you handle just people who maybe you did go on a first date with, or, I told them your terms and then, they gave you quote unquote feedback?
I mean, I love the feedback, because if the feedback came over a direct message, I was usually like, your opinion is noted, end of story. Right. And then if they came back, I was like, and now you're blocked. Right. I just like, I'm not even going to mess around. Like, I don't have time for that. I have my other much better matched dudes to converse with than to talk to somebody who's mad. But I don't know if I got much feedback in person, because I think I was pretty clear. Like, the reason I said no kids is because of the first couple dates I went on, the guys had kids, and I was like, nope, this doesn't feel like a fit. So I'm like, all right, that's something that's going to go on my list of things. And so after that, I really didn't go on any dates with anyone that had kids, because I was pretty clear up front, like, this is a no-go for me. So I don't think I got a ton of feedback. I did have one date. This is so funny. So, and this is, again, like, then it kind of went on my list of like things that, like, hey, like, don't swipe right on these guys in the future. But I went on a date with this guy who seemed absolutely perfect. He was a runner, and he was about my age. And this was like right in the beginning. He was about my age, but maybe a little bit younger. And he was really into personal development. And I was just like, oh, absolutely perfect. And we met in person, and there was literally zero chemistry. And like, not that he was repulsive or anything. I was just like, I just immediately was like, this is a no. Like, I just knew, just setting eyes on him, this is a no. We had a lovely date. Regardless, we had some awesome conversation. And afterwards, he messaged me like almost at the same time I was messaging him, saying, you know what? I had a great time. Thank you. I don't think this is a match. Like, happy to stay in touch as friends. And I was just like, wow. And he was one of the guys that had kids too, I think. I don't know. He was one of the first ones I dated, but it was kind of like so interesting to see how different people responded. Cause then there were some guys, there was one guy I went on 2 or 3 dates with him and decided it was a no. And I said, hey, it's been great, but I don't think this is a match. And I got this tirade of like, you'll regret this. I'm the best thing to ever. I was like, and block. But
it's a form of feedback too, that I think many women don't know how to handle, especially when it comes from a nice person. I know many women I've talked to will say, well, we went on a couple of dates. He's really nice. Almost like they don't have a reason to say no, except that they don't want to keep dating him. Yeah. And they don't feel like they have permission to say no to a nice guy.
Yeah.
Especially
if their ex was how I ended up married. And that's how I ended up married the first time. Yeah. I wasn't really attracted to him, but he was a nice guy. And I felt like, well, he's like not a jerk. Maybe I should just keep going. And then next thing you know, we were walking down the aisle.
Not a jerk is not enough.
Yeah.
We should make that a slogan.
Not a jerk is not. There's got to be sparks. There's got to be sparks.
And there's got to be everything you want. Like, and it's okay to say no to a nice guy. In fact, being a nice guy is the way the whole human race should be. Everyone should just be nice. That's like the baseline.
The baseline, right? Exactly.
Being a nice guy is not this huge thing that we should be grateful for.
Yes.
And I think many women think that, oh my goodness, especially if they've had like really difficult experiences with their exes or past relationships or childhood, it's like, this person is actually nice and good. And there's this level of gratitude because they haven't felt like they deserve that kind of treatment. And I always say, okay, we got to slow down and expand how good you think you should be treated, like how well you should think you should be treated, to where it really needs to be before you pick someone. Yeah. Otherwise, you're going to settle, even though it doesn't feel like settling. My ex-husband, he was not physically abusive, but there's a physical abuse when someone throws things against the wall to intimidate. That's actually physical abuse because it's a threat of violence, even if the person never perpetrates it. So he was more on that like spectrum. Mm-hmm. My dad, on the other hand, did physically abuse both his wives, my mom and, my stepmother. Okay. Yeah. I don't think about her much. So it's kind of hard to like remember. And so when I met my ex, and just subconsciously, he was better.
Right. He was a step up.
And so I was like, oh, yay, win.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
What I always try to teach my clients, which is what you can't get this from like internet dating tips. Is to show them what a truly healthy relationship looks like, which is like way over here from my dad and my ex, like way over here. And helping them see that exists and helping them go for that, even though it might be a little bit of a journey to get there. So like, anyway, I know I kind of just like ran off with the no jerks thing.
But honestly, I think that what you said about helping women see that the possibility that something really amazing out there exists, like that's the first step. Because if you don't even think that you're worthy of that, or that it's possible to even find that, then you're not going to look for it. Yes. So that is really the first step. Yeah. For sure.
All right. So now we want to hear all about your husband.
Oh my goodness.
So what number? You said you went on 50 dates. Was he in the 50?
Okay, no. So I said I was going to go on 50 dates. I made it to 26. He was number 17. And we just immediately, like, that thing on TikTok where they're like, immediately no. Like he was immediately yes. Like everything was just firing. I was like, this guy is amazing, but also not settling down, not getting married. And so he got the same speech as everybody else. Like, I'm going to be dating other guys. And he's like, okay, I'm okay with that. But it's interesting because I realized what I was going to say about the one guy that we ended up just kind of texting each other saying like, hey, it was great, but not a match. He was about my age. And I had gone on not quite a few, like 4 or 5 dates at that time with guys that were in my age range. And I was starting to realize like, I want to date guys that are younger. I want to see what that's like. And so I set my Tinder profile to, so at the time I was 49. So I think I set it to be like 29 to, like, I'm just laughing at myself, 29 to 39 or something.
Love it.
And I was like,
you took out the guys who are your age.
I said, I'm just not going to date anybody my age for now. I really just want to have fun. Guys my age have kids and they're cranky and they're right. Like I was totally generalizing, but I was like, guys my age are just tired. Like, no. And I got a lot of energy and let's go. So I was like only going to date younger guys. And so after that, like that, then it started to get super fun because I felt like, okay, like I felt like I was kind of narrowing in even closer on what I wanted. And then I got so many guys who were like, it's unreasonable for you to expect a younger guy, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, sorry. so
What
sorry,
is
but
the
it's
younger
not.
guys saying that, or the older guys who were
But the
still
younger guys
messaging?
are like, let's go, right? Like there are plenty of guys out there that want to date an older woman. And, you know, several of the ones that I dated specifically said, because there's less drama, there's less, you know, like an older
Mm,
woman knows what she wants. She's not like all worried about like getting married and having kids. She's like, hey, like I just want to have a life and enjoy myself.
yeah.
So,
It's just fascinating how much feedback, again, I have air quotes going, that
mhm,
people were wanting to give you about the age range
yep.
for what you were doing. I'm like, what's happening? Why do
Because
people feel the need to do this?
I feel like men believe that they are smarter and that they know best. And when they don't get what they want, which in this case was a
Mm,
date or a message back, they're like, clearly, and honestly, like, I feel like more women should date like a man and just be like, no, I'm just going to keep going until I get what I want.
yes.
Maybe without the aggression part, because I don't think I never aggressively like messaged anybody and said, hey, you're making a huge mistake if you don't go out on a date with me. But anyway, so
It's
Andy,
something
my
about
husband,
staying in your lane. Like, I'm just doing
yeah,
my dating thing. Why are you here trying to tell me what
yeah,
to do?
yes, there was a lot of that. There was definitely a lot of like being told what to do. And I think I was just like, my rule was I don't engage with idiots.
Love it. Yes. No
And I was,
mansplaining.
yes, no mansplaining, none of it. And so anyway, so I made it to 26 dates. Andy was number 17. And we started seeing each other a lot. And I continued to date other guys. But then at some point, maybe about 3 months after we had started seeing each other, he was kind of like, hey, you know, why don't we just not see other people and just have it be you and me? And I was kind of like, okay, let's give that a try. And so we did. And so I told all the other guys I was dating, and it's not like there were hundreds of them. There were like at that time, maybe 2 or 3. And I was like, listen, like I found somebody that I think I want to explore this. So, you know, let's just put a pause on this. And if it goes tits up, I'll come back and I'll come back and like get in touch with you. But anyway, but it worked out. And I think like the fact that we both entered into the relationship in the beginning, knowing like, and again, I was so clear, like, this is not what I'm looking for, allowed us to just enjoy each other with no agenda.
Mm,
And, but then once we started dating exclusively, I think within about 3 or 4 months, I was kind of like once I was giving him all my attention, I was starting to realize like just how incredible and amazing he was. And like, the more I got to know him, the more I fell in love with him. And then I think, I don't know, maybe a year after that, we moved in together. And then a year after that, we got engaged, and then we got married in the middle of COVID.
love it.
But yeah, and he's 15 years younger than me.
Amen.
So funny. Yeah, he's younger than most of my friends. So
Yeah. So how did that, like, so in my program, you know, I have my clients sort of like set out at the beginning, kind of like what feels good to them as like a timeline for like dating casually, dating multiple people. And then like when they might start considering going exclusive with someone. Kind of like
yeah,
you did this, like you were like, I'm casual. It was like more like 3 months before you said, okay, you
yeah,
know, exclusive with this person. And then I always kind of like recommend to them, like, okay, after that, you need to do the work of being exclusive, which is the work of, you know, working on falling in love, working on seeing that person,
yeah,
and then integrating. So like friends and, you know,
yeah.
family, and like going to like, so how did that work with the age gap, meeting each other's friends, hanging out with each other's friends and family? Was there like anything?
Yeah. So he fits in incredibly well with my family because I'm the youngest of 3 kids, and my brother and sister. My brother is 15 years older than me. My sister is 17 years older than me. So their kids are basically my husband's age. So all of my
Awesome.
nephews and nieces, I know it's so like weird and amazing. So he actually fits in beautifully with my family, and also he's just one of those people that's just super outgoing and friendly, and he makes friends wherever he goes. So like to him, age isn't a thing. It's just, and he's
Mm.
a nurse on the geriatric floor at his hospital. So like, he's just, I don't know, he's just a really unique human. And then he comes from a really small family. So it's just him and his sister. That's it, right? He's got a sister and neither of them has kids. And so I get along really well with his family. I think friends wise, again, like he fit in really well with my friends. And his friends, like, they're a lot younger. And I think it's interesting because I always feel like I don't fit in well with his friends. And then I realize that it's actually my brain saying you don't fit in because you're so much older. So that's like some work that I've sort of had to do on myself, is like, hey, they're just people. Like, you wanted to marry a younger man. Of course, he's going to have younger friends. Like, why is it okay to be with a younger guy and marry him, but it feels awkward with his friends? So I'm like working on that sort of set. It's almost like
he has thoughts that are opposite to yours.
Yeah.
He's like, I can hang out with people in the geriatric ward and have a blast, or I can hang out with, you know, and you don't have the same thoughts that he has, or at least you didn't have them, you know.
I don't. Yeah. I think I'm like bringing them in now. And I think that I've learned so much by watching him interact and realize like, oh, not everybody has the same thoughts about age. And it's just so funny that I deliberately set out to find somebody younger. And then I created a problem for myself because I was like, oh, but now all of his friends are younger. And so it's just kind of been fascinating to watch my brain on that. But overall, like the meshing of our friends and families has gone beautifully well. We actually had a big wedding ceremony on our first anniversary last year after like things started to let up with COVID. And it was super fun because our families were there and our friends were there and everybody was just like kind of hanging out and integrating with each other. And that was really fun to watch.
That's beautiful. That's my favorite part, is when it's like, because I think there are pieces of all the people that we love with us. And when we meet our person, part of it being right is that whatever community we're bringing that we love. Yeah. It is right. I mean, it's not perfect, but it is right. It reminds me of like when I had my my bridal shower for my second marriage, and I had friends from like all these pockets of friends from work and friends from church and friends from here, and then no one had met each other, and then they all met each other at my bridal shower, and we had this incredible time. And I was just like, of course they did.
Of course we did.
Yeah, 100%. Could you speak just to the listeners a little bit about kind of like what you've done here? Is like you've done this amazing thing where these external factors have not been a factor. And so many people go into dating with external factors being a factor. Like, okay, age means this age means these specific things. And then they go on the apps with sort of like a rigid set of thoughts about men who have never been married. I've heard that a lot. Well, men who've never been married are usually emotionally unavailable, and they become really suspicious about it. And I'm like, well, maybe some, like there's plenty of men who like, you know, and I always talk about like, how did you use the external factors for yourself versus against yourself versus having this rigid set of rules around specific things?
Well, first of all, I think there are probably plenty of men who are married who are emotionally unavailable.
Right.
So like, right. Like, I don't think the two go hand in hand, but I don't know. I think like my prevailing thought when I went into this whole process was I want to have fun. It wasn't, I want to find a partner or I want to find somebody that looks a certain way or anything. So I was just super open to, I wanted somebody who was, intelligent and funny and kind.
All internal factors.
Right. And didn't live with his mom. Right. That was another thing. I was like, no dudes who live with their moms. Like that's just a no for me. But beyond that, I didn't really have a lot of, at least in the beginning, I didn't have a lot of external factors until I realized after going on a few dates, I was like, oh, I definitely have a type. And so then when I would see somebody that looked like that, I was probably more likely to swipe on them. But yeah, I think I wasn't like, he has to make more money than me, or he has to, have a great job or whatever. I was like, I just want a person. I want to spend time with people who are interesting and fun, and that, I want to spend time with people who are interesting and fun, and that, I want to spend time with people who are interesting and fun, and that, I want to spend time with people who are interesting and fun, and that, I want to spend time with people who are interesting and fun, and that, I want to spend time with people who are interesting and fun, and that, I want to spend time with people who are interesting and fun, and that, I want to spend time with people who are interesting and fun, and that, I want to spend time with people who are interesting and fun, and that, I want to spend time with people who are interesting and fun, and that, I want to spend time with people who are interesting and fun, and that, I want to spend time with people who are interesting and fun, and that, I want to spend time with people who are interesting and fun, and that, I want to spend time with people who are interesting and fun, and that, I want to spend time with people who are interesting and fun, and that, I want to spend time with people who are interesting and fun, and that, I want to spend time with people who are interesting and fun, and that, I want to spend time with people who are interesting and fun, and that, I want to spend time with people who are interesting and fun, and that, I want and that I have a good time with. And that was the requirement. And so, yeah, that's all internal. That didn't come from any kind of external circumstances at all. It was just, and I think what I consider to be a fun time, like a guy that I might be like, oh my gosh, we have so much fun together, somebody else might not feel the same way. Right. So it was just all about how our personalities meshed and so forth. And there were plenty of guys that I went on a couple dates with and I was like, nah. And then there were probably 2 or 3 that I saw for several months, even though I knew full out, and we had agreed, this is not going anywhere. This is just for, one of them he was 29 years old. So we were literally 20 years apart in age. And I was like, let's just have fun. Like, I'm not looking for a boyfriend. I'm not looking for a husband, like just looking for somebody to have fun with. So there were a couple different guys like that. And that was really enjoyable, I guess, because then we would get together, have a great time. And then there was no, I don't know. I was like, I'm dating like a dude. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah. There was no attachment. And what's interesting is you ended up married.
Yes, I know.
It's like, I'm super unattached to being partnered or being married. And then you ended up with like, quote unquote, I'm going to roll my eyes, the prize.
Yeah.
Was there a moment where that changed for you, where you're like, oh, you know what? No, I want to do this thing forever with this guy?
Well, when we moved in together, I was kind of like, all right, this is, like when we moved in together, I wasn't thinking I want to get married, but I was thinking like, this is a commitment that I'm willing to keep for life. Like I wasn't going to move in with somebody that I wouldn't consider like a rest of my life partner. So the commitment was there when we moved in together, but it's kind of funny because about 6 months after we moved in, I realized that my COBRA insurance coverage from, when I left my ex, because I was self-employed, like I was on his insurance. And then when we separated, I went on like COBRA is that, most people know what it is.
For a while, you get
it for like 3 years or something. As soon as the divorce is final, then you get like 3 years. So my 3 years was coming up, and I was kind of like, oh crap, like it's going to be really expensive to get my own insurance. And so Andy came home from work one day, and I was like, so I got an idea. Because it's going to cost me a lot of money to get insurance. And I'm like, since we're cohabitating, can I get on your insurance? And so he's like, all right, I'll look into it. And he looked into it. He's like, no, that's not how it works in New Jersey. I was like, all right, so are you open to getting married?
You were like, listen, dude, I need insurance.
I know. It was the least romantic. And he's like, are you proposing to me? And I'm like, I guess so. I don't know. It was just so weird. Because it had never been my intention. But then I was like, well, I was like, I'm not going anywhere. You're not going anywhere. Like, why don't we just get married? And he was like, yeah, actually, that's not a bad idea. Let's do it. And so we did. And it was, it's kind of funny because he's actually he's way more of a romantic than I am. And he's always like bringing me like little presents and cards and texting me throughout the day how much he loves me. And to have our origin story be like that is just, I don't know, it kind of cracks me up because it's so like, he probably would have proposed in a year or two, but I had been so loud about, I don't want to get married. I don't want to get married. He's like, I just thought you didn't want to get married. He's like, and you kind of took me by surprise. So, but it all worked out. So,
yeah. And I love that because there's this thing about the fairy tale. And I always want to, a lot of people think it's like this all or nothing. Like you're either in the fairy tale and obsessed, which is not healthy, or it's like, well, the fairy tale doesn't exist. So then I'm going to settle for this ordinary thing.
Yeah.
And the reality is it's actually a little bit of both. There's like a lot of ordinary things about a healthy relationship and a lot of extraordinary things.
Yeah.
And they're all there, like this very ordinary proposal.
Yeah.
But then this very extraordinary love and extraordinary like romance that you have going. So it's always somewhere in the middle.
Yeah. And I think like, for me, I just look at him and my heart just goes pitter pat. And I'm like, we've been together about, I guess it'll be 5 years since our first date later this month. 5 years. Oh my gosh. And I still get the same, like, just excitement. Like when he comes home from work, I'm like, he's home, you know? And I just never thought of myself as that kind of person. When I was married to my first husband, I was just like, yeah, he's home, you know? But now I'm like, oh, I want to spend, like, my girlfriends would say, oh, you know, my husband's around this weekend, so I want to spend time with him. And I always thought to myself, oh, girl, get it together. Like, what are you going to waste your time on a man? And now I get it. I'm like, oh,
they're actually in love.
I know they're actually in love. What the heck?
They really truly like and enjoy each other's company.
Yes. Yeah. So now, like, I get it, and I'm super grateful that I have it, I actually love the way it happened too. Cause I feel like I didn't force it. It kind of like, I opened my thoughts up to a new way of doing things. And then this beautiful, ideal situation found me.
Yeah, I love it. Jill, oh my gosh, your story is so heartwarming. Like I know it's going to be an inspiration to so many people, and I appreciate you taking the time to come on the podcast to share it with the listeners. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. All right. So, please tell the listeners, well, actually, before that, if you have any last piece of advice that maybe we didn't cover, anything that like my ladies who are dating after divorce need to hear. We covered a lot. There was a lot of gems here.
Yeah. I mean, I think basically you're never too old to go on Tinder because that is where I found my husband. And also I feel like a rejection, like if you go out with a guy and he rejects you, right? In other words, he says, he ghosts you, or he says, I don't want to date you anymore, or whatever. It has nothing to do with you and everything to do with him. And like, the more you can bring yourself back to like, okay, well, that just wasn't the right person for me. And just come back to like, focus on what you are looking for, and don't worry about the humans that aren't interested in you, because they're just not your people. So like, don't waste your time with that.
Yeah. 100%. 100%. All of us, like the person for us is going to want exactly who we are.
Yes. Exactly. Yeah. Right. Because if you are with somebody and you're like, no, that was my person, like he just doesn't understand it. Like, no, actually you don't understand it. Like, he's not your person and you're the confused one. Yes.
Because if he was your person, he would be with you.
Exactly.
I love it. That's great advice. Thank you. Thank you so much. Please tell the listeners again what you do, who you work with, and where they can find you if they want to work with you.
Okay. So again, I work with plus size women who want to start running, married plus size women, divorced plus size women, separated plus size women,
all the women, all the plus size women.
And as we've chatted about before, running is a great way to help bring back your confidence after a divorce and as you're dating. So I think it's a great compliment. Like if you are in the process of getting divorced, or you're dating after divorce and you want to build some confidence, come find me. My podcast name is Not Your Average Runner. You can find me on Instagram at Not Your Average Runner. You can find me on Facebook at Not Your Average Runner. Like all the things, Not Your Average Runner. And I'll help you get started running.
Yes. And I know we did a podcast episode for you, your podcast in the future, where I kind of talked about how running was part of my healing journey. Yeah. So I know it's coming out it's already out because based on the date, it's already out. So go check out Not Your Average Runner, the podcast, and find my episode if you are in the middle of divorce and you're healing. And if you are interested in running, please reach out to Jill, follow her, connect with her. Thank you all for your time and attention, and we will see you next time. Thanks for listening today. If you are ready to get married after divorce, I want to invite you to download my free 8-video training specifically designed to help divorced women date with ease and get married again. Head over to sadecurry.com to get started. That's SADECURRY.com. I'll see you inside.